Hello, welcome to the Colonel Louisa S. Morse Center for Civil Air Patrol History. I am your narrator, Colonel Frank Blazich. I'm also your Morse Center Director. This video intends to provide an overview of the Center's progress to date from March 2018 to the present. The Morse Center is designed as the storage facility for the CAP National Archives and Historical Collections. It is also a research center to further the study and preservation of CAP's corporate history. We are not a museum, but we are a place to help people understand CAP, where we've been, where we are, and potentially where we are going. I'm standing before you in our lobby area, but I want to highlight first some objects that we have here that are available right now for your unit to share its history. The first item is this large plastic case. I'll provide information on it. This is a history display kit. So what you get in this box are 6 inflatable mannequins, and all the information there. You get 6 inflatable mannequins, you get easels, you get plastic information holders. We're going to flash drive with files and graphics, slideshows, all sorts. This is essentially a history display in a box. Just add artifacts. This can be shipped anywhere in or outside the United States for loan. The cost of shipping is covered by the borrower, both to and fro. But the idea here is for those units that are unable to invest in the actual display materials, they can borrow them to put together a history display, which could be for an open house. It could be for a wing or region conference. It could be for a public event, perhaps a recruiting event, or just the opportunity to showcase CAP's history at any other public venue. A more recent item that we've assembled is this. This is a oral history kit, and what you see before you, you can borrow a digital audio recorder. We have the various parts that go with the recorder. Spare batteries, memory cards. It all comes in a nice Pelican case that's lockable. We use TSA approved locks for everything. As with the history display kit, the oral history kit can be loaned out. You just have to cover the cost to and fro. But these will be able to capture high quality interviews via telephone or in person. You could, if anything, partner the two pieces together and conduct oral histories at your history display. Someone may come up and say, I was in CAP once, and right then and there you could be able to conduct an oral history. All of this material is meant to not just share our history, but preserve this history. The beauty, too, of these oral history kits, we have one in Texas right now that is meant to be loaned out to units west of the Mississippi. This kit is meant to be loaned out to those units east of the Mississippi. We'll provide more information after this video during the Q&A to explain what you need to do if you'd like to borrow these and how to contact the Morse Center. In terms of the lobby, and there I am, hello, we have our posters, which were created for the 75th anniversary. All of these are available on history.cap.gov/resources. You can download either the poster files or we have the 80 by 33 inch pop-up display banners. Eventually we are going to have artifacts in these two cases, but really they're artifacts that would be recent acquisitions or materials to showcase the work here of the center. More of our artwork. We do have the one object out on display is the hood of the last CAP race car. It's a rather large piece, as you can see, and some of our more famous posters. We do take safety seriously here at Morse, so we always have our first aid kit, full fire extinguishers, and we also have fire suppression systems, sprinkler systems throughout the facility. Here's our operations room. So we have full Wi-Fi throughout Morse, and we also have a local network that we've constructed for ourselves, as you can see the cables we put in. This way we're not on the base's internet, but we have our own independent system. The television here has been used for the AFA convention for CAP's display booth, but the intent is we'll probably mount a camera system with it for kind of video conferencing, Zoom, Skype, and so forth, so that we could actually host educational sessions right here from the Morse Center remotely. We do have a conference table, so that we can host meetings here, small learning opportunities, training sessions down the road. Through the immense generosity of Lieutenant Colonel Jack Foss, what you see here is an original piece of Zach Mosley artwork. Let's see if I can zoom in for you, as our zoom function does not want to work. Okay, I can't seem to zoom. I do apologize. But an original piece of Zach Mosley art. We also have the only original World War II copy of the Eyes of the Home Skies poster in CAP's possession, which has been archivally mounted and framed. We do also have ye olde snail mail telephone and voicemail system. We do check this voicemail, so if you need to get a hold of us, feel free. Again, we'll share all the contact information at the end of this video. To quickly see if I can get the camera back here for a second. Apologies. Now, to quickly orient to the Morse Center, here you can actually see a room layout. You are here on this wall, and we are just here at our lobby and our headquarters room. We have designed the Morse Center so that this half is mostly the half for visitors if they're going to need to come in to either research or training or whatnot. But the back end, we have the archives and the artifacts. Now, presently, we don't have all the rooms strictly segregated between archives and artifacts, but that is going to be the end goal. In terms of one of our processing rooms, Major Colleen McCormick, who is the head, who basically oversees the CAP National Archives and Historical Collections, here's where she is actively processing documents, although I should preface actively with pre-COVID-19 actively processing documents. The center has been closed since March due to the pandemic. But to give you an idea of really what she's trying to accomplish and what the center is trying to accomplish, these are processed documents she's been working on. In this case, files collected by the late Colonel Bill Shell. Hence Shell collection. We have a box number, what's in the box. All this is acid-free. And here you can see the documents have been labeled and organized and numbered. And so eventually, and we'll start with folder 1 here, all this material will be digitized. But what do we have? We have CAP Pamphlet 1 from 1965. And what is Pamphlet 1? But the CAP Chaplain Applicant Kit. And so once everything is processed, we can then go through the process of digitization, and all of these files will then be made available on our website, history.cap.gov. If this was a YouTube video, I would say please subscribe and click like. So coming over here, we have our break room. This little room we have set up so if you want to come in and grab a snack, get something to have a cup of coffee or something, we have a little table where you can eat. We have chairs, we have our fridge. For our littlest members of the National History Program, we have a pack and play that's temporarily stored in here, our microwave and coffee maker. In terms of researchers, we can host 2 people at a time, although because, again, we're a volunteer staff, we really can only host people on weekends at present. There we go. So we have room for 2 researchers. This third desk is for a supervisor. I believe we're going to be shifting this computer out of here, but for the time being, it was being configured in here. Digitization is going to be a huge component of the Morse Center, and we've already invested substantially in equipment. So this is going to be kind of the nerve center of digitization. We have Windows and Mac computers. We've invested in a 3D scanner for some objects. We have our high-res wide-body scanner, high-speed scanner in the back, another high-speed scanner. Piece de resistance is our large wide-body scanner. This can take whole sectional charts, posters, massive oversized documents. So we'll be able to digitize all of that here in-house. The other thing that I have to emphasize is the records we have at the Morse Center come in all formats. We have 5-inch disc, floppy disks. We have smaller, I think it's 3.5-inch discs. We have iOmega zip discs. We have audio cassette tapes. We have reel-to-reel audio tapes. We have 16 millimeter, 8 millimeter film, Betamax tapes, various both professional videotapes and what most people think of as the home VHS tapes. All sorts of formats, CD-ROMs, and all this material is deteriorating with age, and it needs to be updated and accessible in contemporary formats. So we also have older computer equipment. We have a Dell here, and we actually have a Gateway back here. I believe it's a Gateway. So we also have older computers specifically so that we can access these older files with older software and convert them to contemporary formats. And I'm going to highlight now how we store things, and feast your eyes on General Curry's actual footlocker. What you notice is on a stainless steel metal rack. Now, all artifacts here at Morse and all records are stored, but for permanent storage, are on these movable metal racks. They allow ventilation on all sides, but we can also label these racks, and we purchased all that equipment. We're not yet in the process of finalizing the labeling system on the physical racks. But you'll be able, for example, to say, I want to see General Curry's footlocker, and we'll go, okay, where is that? We'll bring up our digital database, and we'll go, okay, that's in room 214, rack 2, shelf 3, and bang. We can then go to that room, find the rack, find the shelf, there's the object. Now that's an easy example, because we have a large footlocker, but for, say, an individual file, like I showed you previously, that's going to be a lifesaver to know exactly where they are. And so what you see in here are materials that have either been recently acquired and not yet processed, or in some cases, these are materials that have been acquired and were processed, but were out on loan and we need to restore them. All the work that you see, everything, all the storage racks that were assembled, all the materials that were shipped in, everything's been processed. This has largely been the work of just 3 people, myself, Major McCormick, and Lieutenant Colonel Jacob Gerstein, who's helped with all the digitization and computing equipment. This room eventually is going to be what we call conservation and housing. So if we need to clean an object or stabilize it, that'll be done in here, and then we'll rehouse it, putting it in new storage materials. What you see here is material that was stored down in Georgia, as well as national headquarters that's been shipped up to us. And for our comm folks, here are 2 radios that were donated to us by the Cold War Museum out in Vint Hill. But both of these radios were actually used by a squadron up in West Virginia, if memory serves. Actually, Logan, West Virginia, to be specific. And one goal long term will be not only to get some of these radios conserved, but potentially get them functional again. Not that we could broadcast with them, but certainly show how they would have been used. So now we're going to enter really the staff-only area, if you will. Along this hallway, these are artifact rooms, and past this column in this bookcase, to your right, those are the archive storage rooms. Here's Artifacts 1. And here you can see these are substantially larger storage racks for the larger rooms. And we have uniforms stored in these boxes. Some of the materials are actually how they were found prior to setting up the Morse Center in storage out in Baltimore, Maryland, in those plastic totes that were, and that was the system used by the late Colonel Bill Schell. Now here in Artifacts 2, for current and former CAP aircrew, all of these boxes that you see here, these have been shipped up by National Headquarters, and they contain the files for all of the aircraft that were formerly part of the corporate fleet. These would have been aircraft that were Air Force aircraft that were surplused and transferred to CAP, or those aircraft that CAP purchased over the years and then disposed of, or that we've lost through crashes or storms or damage and whatnot. Again, the goal is to get all of these digitized and made available, so if someone comes saying, I'm trying to find information on a particular airframe, we'll be able to pull the file and give as much information as CAP retained about that particular aircraft. The files vary in terms of content, but it's an absolute goldmine of information to those doing aircraft research. Now, a note real quickly about how the actual storage racks work. And why did we opt for this? So nothing is permanent here. Everything could be moved out of the center if we had to. Nothing's permanently affixed to the walls. Basically all we had to do was empty these rooms out, vacuum the carpets, and assemble these racks. Now, if you notice the casters here, they have what are called donut bumpers. Those are those round discs. That's to protect the walls and other carts. But what you do is you unlock them, and then you can pull a cart out. I'm trying to do this with one hand, and I'll see if I can put our camera up here. There you go. So you can basically pull one of these carts out to access a particular box. So we can pull something out of one of these boxes, and then when you're done, you can simply move the cart back. There's our donut bumpers. Lock it in place. It's not the most sophisticated system, but it's very functional for our needs. And again, if we wanted to pull any of these carts out of the individual rooms, we can. They do fit through these very tall door frames that we have here. Now, for those users of history.cap.gov, these files here, many of these have already been digitized. These were assembled by Colonel Shell over the years from files that he acquired all over. But for that which is in here that isn't digitized will be digitized and made available. Now here are 4 of the 5 archives rooms, 1, 2, 3, 4. The 5th is actually right over here. But for the time being, Major McCormick has separated out the materials by donor. So everything you see here, this is material acquired by Colonel Len Blaskovich. Over here we have both accession files as well as materials that were donated recently by National Headquarters. So this is all material in these 2 racks from National that was in storage, more material from National storage, some more in storage, and then up top there we have materials that Major McCormick has processed and rehoused. The CAP Historical Foundation records and artifacts are all located here. So here are all those materials. And more of materials from Colonel Shell that Major McCormick has processed are located in here. And here gives you a better idea. I can pull one of these carts out. Ugh. There we go. And here you can see, again, files that Major McCormick has been able to go through and process and rehouse, all acid-free. Some of this has been digitized, not all of it, but that is our end goal. See if I can get this back in. There we go. There's more of our artifacts. We have been able to get uniforms stored in these large acid-free boxes here. Ideally, you want them all to be laid flat. We're still in the process of working through rehousing. It's a very time-consuming process, as you could well imagine, particularly when we only have a staff of 3 at the moment, and add to that struggle with the pandemic. More of our artifacts. Here you can see some of the World War II era uniforms that were pulled out for displays. Now, and here we do have materials on these 2 carts. These date from about 2013 to 2018, I think some 2019. And these have been processed. These have all been new items that have been accessioned and cataloged. Not all have been rehoused, but that's a work in progress. In this row right here, we have artifacts and records from the late Major General Dwight Wheelis that were generously donated by his son-in-law, Colonel Jason Altieri. Also, on this card here, you have materials that were in storage at National Headquarters, and were in storage for at least a decade plus. That they shipped up to me in 2 gigantic pallets and dropped off in my driveway, and then everything was brought back over here to Morse. We haven't, in many cases, had a chance even to break the seals and go through all the boxes yet. And likewise, we have more materials from national headquarters, artwork that maybe used to hang on the walls, records, photographs, the national board meetings. We have almost all the briefing books and considerable notes of those meetings. And we do have some materials in here, as you can see, that Major McCormick has had a chance to process and store. And last but not least, we have our supply room. And we do have a fire escape if need be. And we also have our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. One there, one here. The reason they are still in place is due to the ant traps, because unfortunately we had a slight ant problem. Ant-Man decided to move in, and we had to eliminate him, and the spiders helped. So the storage room is what you would expect, a storage room. We have extra archival processing materials. We have mannequins on this cart kind of hidden behind everything. There's mannequins, you can see some of them there. Models for history displays, a box of heads. Disclaimer, there's styrofoam display heads. Extra boxes, extra materials for processing, file folders. National Headquarters was able to help fund the purchase of these cases for the pop-up display banners. These are all on wheels and lockable for shipping purposes. We also have these massive road cases, and these are holding all of the aluminum glass tabletop display cases. So the nice thing is, for future history displays, this equipment will make it a lot easier for us to transport all this stuff for conference displays. Instead of in the past, it was lugging individual cardboard boxes, which, as you can imagine, is rather time-consuming and laborious. So this essentially concludes the walkthrough of the Morse Center. We've made a huge amount of progress to date, but considerable work remains. Once the pandemic has lessened and or a vaccine has been developed, Major McCormick's plan is to actually bring in more staff to help with the processing and the digitization of the artifacts and the archival records. Now, the priority for us is on the archives, to get as much of that material digitized, processed, and made available on history.cap.gov. And we would like to have all that work complete prior to our opening. Now, we originally wanted to open in late 2021. We may have to push that back to 2022, again, due to the pandemic. We're all kind of in a wait-and-see situation at the moment. But the good news is all this material has been consolidated. It is safe here in a climate-controlled facility. It is a very secure facility on an active Air Force base. Most important of all, Morse Center is not the vision of its contemporary people. This is a vision that goes back decades, really, to finally have a home for CAP's history. And ideally, if time will permit and we can work the right relations, this little room here, which, as fate would have it, the door is open today. This is a storage room used by the Office of Air Force History. It's immediately adjacent to Morse. If we were ever to create a small in-house museum, that's where ideally we'd like to get it. But until we get Morse Center open, that's a dream that we're going to have to put on hold. I'm happy and look forward to answer any questions you may have in the Q&A session to follow, and all contact information will be provided at that time. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Look forward to your questions. Thank you.